Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Sake Drinker and Friends. We're very excited. We're back at the sake bar at the Morimoto Napa with our friends from ToutSuite, and we have some very, very important guests or neighbors from 1313 and the newly appointed executive chef Adam Ross here to execute a couple dishes, and we can talk about pairings with sake and whatnot.
Absolutely, very happy to be here.
Nice. We're missing one more member of the staff from 1313. He is on his way as we speak, and always well dressed, as you'll see. Without further ado, I mean, we'd love to hear a little bit of an overview of what we're going to do today with the chef's dishes, and then we can get into the sake world.
We'll just jump right into it. Our first dish is going to be a beef tartare. We've taken ribeye trim, very lean ribeye trim, diced it up very fine, as you can see here. The components of the dish will be the tartare, some freshly grated horseradish, which, unlike prepared horseradish, has a very floral, very fresh flavor. We'll be finishing it with just a touch of greens from our garden over at Main Street Culinary Gardens. We'll be serving it on puffed beef tendon, which makes for a nice special. It kind of ties the dish all together, the beef to the beef. Also, we've made a mayonnaise from oysters. So oysters, inherently creamy, briny, make for a great base for an aioli. Their proteins hold the oil as a egg yolk would, and so we've just made that same process happen with the oyster. So we'll start by mixing together our tartare. Very simple, very clean flavors. We've got, of course, our beef right here, and just some finely minced shallots right here. So we'll just mix them together.
I don't know about you guys at home, but it makes my mouth water just listening and looking at all these ingredients and smelling the aromas. And it definitely calls, I think, for a richer style of sake. But without further ado, as we mentioned, the always best dressed Jordan Nova.
Hi, how are you doing?
You gotta get it on camera.
Coming over here.
There you
All
go.
right. So, yeah, we're excited to be here with Eduardo, of course. I'm going to be the second best dressed person in Napa. It's this guy.
Really?
I can't complain about that. So
We have some good-looking people to look after here.
So which sakes are we going to be having
So
today?
I was thinking, I was going through the sake fridge earlier and listening to the whole description about the tartare. We'll start with a richer style. This one coming from Gunma, and this is a honjoso, which I'll trade you over here.
Pardon me.
That way I can get all the work done while Chef gets on his way with the dish. So if you want to focus on Chef and hear his descriptions, I'll start pouring the sake and talk about it.
So a little bit just into the tendon itself. We've taken beef tendon, we've braised it down. It becomes pliable. We then cool it, slice it into strips, which then get dehydrated. So this is the process in which brings it to the stage that you see it here. It's translucent, it is brittle, very brittle. And at the point where it hits oil, very hot oil of course, the moisture that's left in this little chip will try and release, turn to steam and try and release. And what happens is it forms these really unique kind of crevices and whatnot, very similar to a chicharron. So beef tendon chicharron. So once again, we've mixed the shallots, just a bit of olive oil, beef, and some Malden salt, which really has that nice crunch to it, and I like that crunch. So this makes for a great canapé. I'll get in on that. Cheers.
So when it came to sake with food, we sent Eduardo some of the descriptions beforehand, and of course everything that went into the dish, not just the ingredients, but the preparations of them. What did you think about when you wanted to bring these sakes about? We tried to pick things that were all very sake friendly, and we have our ideas of why they're sake friendly, but I'm curious what yours are as well.
So some of the dishes, as this one, it looks amazing. Looking at the description doesn't do any justice to actually see it in effect and hearing from Chef as he's describing them even before the show. So a dish like this, to me, where you have a richness, you have the oyster sauce, you have the chicharrones style tendons, you have the beef tartare, you have a richness to it that, to me, you need a little roundness, a little bigger style, which I immediately thought about the gunma, which has it's a honjoso, made in the Gunma prefecture, southern, usually a richer style. And I don't know what you get on the aromas, but to me, this is forest floor, richer, broad shoulders. It's got a little mushroomy quality to it that will definitely stand up and won't get lost as if you would with a Daiginjo or a little more delicate style.
And Daiginjos you feel would get lost because of the lighter body.
Exactly. So usually a Daiginjo, which won't be the case in the one we'll taste in a little bit, but usually a Daiginjo has a softer, feminine style, especially from north, where it gets overpowered with a little spice or richness or a steak. So in that case, you need to be attacked with a southern style or a Honjoso, a Junmai, a lower grade where it has a little more to grasp from, a little more terroir, if you will, in a way. And I want you all to see this dish, which is coming up amazing.
So just before we garnish it with our herbs, we've kind of laid down our tartare, dotted in our oyster aioli, and just made it rain with horseradish. So that's where you see it right now. All these flavors are kind of classic with a beef tartare. Our twist is really the tendon and the oyster aioli. So we've got some very young mustard, which plays really nice into the tartare aspect, as well as some red vein sorrel. Sorrel is beautiful green, getting very popular these days, and it's really most noteworthy is the little bit of acidity that the leaf itself has. It's almost the green that doesn't need to be dressed because it has that tang to it. So all of these kind of things are not only here because they're beautiful, they're here because they play into the dish itself. So my goal in this one bite is to have you experience all the flavors at the same level that you would experience them of having a full range entree, just really a flavor bomb, if you will.
Chef, you want to give us a little bit of your background as we do this?
Absolutely. Well, I was born in Connecticut, raised in Florida. I became very interested in culinary arts at a young age. I knew it was something I wanted to pursue at the age of 12 or 13. I jumped right into professional kitchens when I was legally able to, and even a little bit before that, but don't tell anybody. From there, I moved around a lot. I went to culinary school in Colorado. I worked for some great people, including Frank Bonanno. From there, I moved to Hawaii, where I met this gentleman over here. We spent some time at Chef Mavra restaurant in Alan Wong's. I moved to the mainland, back to the mainland to work for Thomas Keller group at Ad Hoc, and then after that, the restaurant at Meadowood. And I found myself at 1313 Main, and very happy to be here and trying to bring a nice little addition to downtown Napa.
Nice. If I may add, I was lucky enough a couple of weeks ago to go have brunch to celebrate my mom's birthday with close friends, and we had an amazing time. It's such a space. It's very gracious. The staff, the food was over the top. We won't stop talking about it. It's still to this day. And of course, when you have Jordan greeting you at the door and bring a little crew to start, doesn't help much. But I want to hear a little bit about Jordan, and who's one of the youngest people that I look up as far as the world of wine and pairings and running a list and a restaurant with some such charm. And I'll give it up to you for a second.
Thank you. So I'm really lucky. I started relatively young in the industry and was able to work for some of the best people and have some really incredible people find me young and give me opportunities that most people wouldn't take a chance on. So it was really exciting for that. So I started working in Austin, Texas, and I worked for Roy's, which was odd, finding my love for Hawaiian cuisine. So I started working for Roy's, and I started there and running the wine program, doing the wine clubs there, really kind of small, just very light introductory. I was only 18 at the time, so you can't do too much. But luckily, Texas is a little forgiving in their alcohol laws. So I worked in Texas, worked for a couple other wine bars in Austin, Texas, and then was given the opportunity to go work for Dinex, Dana Balud's restaurant group in New York City. And I moved there, and after some time, quickly learned I don't like New York. So I picked up and moved to Hawaii, and with the intent of not working in wine for 2 years to take a little break. And I fell into a job where I worked my very first night in Hawaii, worked the Hawaiian Food and Wine Festival, and met this gentleman. And I was 21 or 20, I was 22, and he thought I was full of it and and really didn't like me. And we became pretty good friends after that. And we worked together. We worked on a lot of tasting menus in Hawaii together. It was exciting to be able to walk into the kitchen and really taste all the components, just like you would see here. I would taste just the tartare, or just the tendon, or just the shallots, or just the sorrel. And he would come in and taste the wine. So it was really exciting to get to work in that way and really understand collaboration. So we've been roommates for a long time, and we moved to Napa. And when the time kind of came right and the planets aligned, it was perfect for him to come join us at 1313, which has been my baby for the last 2 years. So it's exciting to kind of share that endeavor and that challenge with someone who you care deeply about. So that's how we ended up here in Napa. So it looks like we've finished our tendon. So I'm really excited to taste this with you because I've tasted this a number of times without sake. So I'm excited to see what it's like with the element that you've added into it. So let's dig in, please.
Without further ado, yeah, absolutely.
I'll take the one in the middle.
Please, Eduardo, please.
Thanks.
Oh wow. Oh yeah. That's like a 1 + 1 = 3 right there. Yeah, I think this is kind of a 1 + 1 = 3 situation where the food and the pairing together makes it something totally different and above all else, you know. And that's what we look for when we do our pairings, is not for one to shine over the other or whatnot, but for them to work together to create something different and new. And I can say that this is something that we've done for a while, and it's something that I've never had taste so good.
I'm really amazed too with the flavors, the layering of the meat and the saltiness of the tendon. It definitely plays really well with the little brightness from the microgreens. And then I think the sake in this case kind of hugs it and runs along with it. It's pretty a great marriage, if you will. I don't know.
When we talk about food at the restaurant, I think Chef and we always talk about how things are we talk about the structure of everything, and we try to figure out how, for instance, with meat, tartare, it's very steaky, if you will, but then we have a pronounced steakiness, but then we need some kind of dull element too, which we always talk about. So in this case, the tendon provides another element of meatiness that isn't over the top, but it's still really delicate. And then, of course, this is salted with Malden, right? And then, so there's Malden on top to finish the tartare, but then there's also a brininess in the oyster as well. There's a natural creaminess from the steak being raw, but then there's a creaminess from, of course, the aioli also. So we always try to add 2 elements of every structure, one pronounced and one dull, which I think when it comes to pairing, if you have both of those, it makes the pairing even probably better. But I'm kind of curious with sake, and how did you, or there's maybe, let's say, quite a few people in the industry who feel that sake is difficult to pair with because it's not high acid, because it's not palate cleansing, because it doesn't have tannin, or maybe doesn't have a very abrupt texture. What are your thoughts on that? Because I have my own thoughts. I'm curious what yours are as well.
Well, for sake, the way I've always seen it, because you have different layers of sake. As we talked about, some delicate styles, some rougher styles, and everything in between, where in some cases you have a little minerality, but you definitely never achieve that high acidity that some wines might have. So the fun thing for me about sake is that at the same time you're looking at not having that acidity, but when you don't have that acidity at the same time, it could be a friend of yours when it comes to the pairings. So you expect from the dish, you're pulling out a little more of those notes that are come out, and the sake is just gonna embrace it instead of fighting with it. So I think for most cases, sake enhances the dish when you're talking about pairings, rather than actually being the wine or the beverage taking over. And I think this is a great example because you have all the layers, all the textures, and all the different tones. As you said, the dull and the bigger tones. And it plays really well without fighting it. And that's just how I see it. So, and that's how I enjoy it so much. And then let's get into the next course real quick from Chef, and I'll let you take it up.
So our next dish is something that we've had on the menu for a while. It's a dish of wild California king salmon. And what we do is we take the fish, we clean it, and we put a 24-hour cure of Meyer lemon zest, fennel, bit of orange, a touch of garlic, really heavy on the fennel frond, and it just becomes, it takes on this kind of flavor and texture that is just incredible. So you can see the color enhances on the fish a little bit, and it's got this outside that has just a little bit of firmness to it, but if you take a look at the cut, it's very nice and still has a good bit of the natural creaminess that salmon should have. So with this dish, we slice it thin, we serve it with cucumbers, creme fraiche that we make in-house, unripe green tomatoes, as you can see here. We have our cucumbers. We have tomatoes that are just a little underripe. The reason behind this is that they provide a nice level of acid, a little bit of stringency that really helps to counteract the creaminess and the richness of the salmon. I know a lot of people, and chefs included, who would look at me like I'm crazy for using unripe tomatoes or underripe tomatoes, but we just look for a little bit of give to the tomato. The hips of the tomato should just be firm but loose at the same time, and it sets the dish there. As well, we have some pickled radishes, some thinly sliced raw radish, bit of fresh chive, and lovage. Now, lovage is an herb that really holds a special place in my heart. If you look at all these components, it would be really easy to call out dill. Dill goes with that. I find that lovage adds a nice little bit of high-tone brightness, a nice bit of green that really just makes the dish taste really fresh, where dill is great. Dill's a little bit played out, especially with cured salmon. So lovage, if you've never tried lovage, I would say it's like a combination of parsley and celery. Like if parsley and celery had a vegetable baby, it would be the lovage. So that's kind of where we've gone with that. So I'm just going to take all of these ingredients, except for the salmon, toss it in this bowl right here, and yeah, we'll give them all kind of a bath. Oh, all three. I'll do all three. So, pickled radishes, really to me, hold a little place in my heart. They have beautiful color, beautiful flavor. If you do this at home, 2 parts vinegar, 1 part sugar, 1 part water, always have perfect pickles. And radishes just work great for that.
How long you do that?
Take care for the pickle. With dense root vegetables, what I'll sometimes do is just bring the liquid up to a boil, add the vegetable, bring it back up to a boil, and then pull it off the stove and let it cool to room temperature. Now what this does is it allows the vegetable to cook just enough to be tender but still maintain a little bit of crunch. So that's how I recommend it. And what I'll actually do is I'm just going to grab this pickled turnips themselves, because I'm going to use that pickling liquid as the dressing for the salad, which I feel really ties all elements together. And as you can smell, it's quite potent.
Absolutely.
So with our poaching liquid, or pickling liquid rather, we're just going to add a little bit more of that Maldon salt. If you can see, if you've never had Maldon salt, it really is really something quite special. It's very coarse and very delicate. It holds up to liquid, which a lot of salt won't. It'll dissolve. So this maintains its crunch and just adds a little element that we really appreciate. As well, I'm going to grab this olive oil over here. Perfect. Wonderful. Just going to kind of toss everything together. So I'll start with about 3. This makes for a really nice light appetizer. Something that we like to do as kind of a first course. It's very clean on the palate, and it leaves you kind of feeling fresh and excited as a first course should, without being overpowering.
What I love is how many elements of California this dish has, but chef is Jewish and it has so many of his. It's a perfect marriage of the two. It's not distinctly a California dish, and it's not distinctly from his heritage, but it sits somewhere right in between. And for me, I think that's really
It's
exciting.
a fun play on the cultures.
And this dish is because of the brine and all of the high tone brightness and the great acid, but none of these acids are pronounced. Everything is pickled, but there's a bitter element to everything. It pairs so well. We've done this with Jura. We've We used this for Paul Meyer's release party and found that with a little bit more salt, a bit more acid, it was fantastic with that. So we found so many different elements. We've served this with Old Merceau and really loved it's so versatile. So we thought, well, let's try this with sake. And we thought, well, I don't know. So we opened a bottle of Oyama's Gensuika sake, at the end of the night and it was fantastic.
Nice.
So I'm excited to see what element you brought to it.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious. This is definitely a challenge to pair. So I thought I'd play a little safe with the Yamaha Junmai, which has a slightly more acidity. As we talked about, there's no sake with huge acidity, but in the scale of things, a little tropical notes, a little liveliness to it, a little key lime. So I'm really curious to see how that works. And if you don't mind holding this,
Of course,
I'll start
please.
pouring it.
Yeah, we were going to put a latke on here, but we figured that would be a little bit harder for you to prepare.
Absolutely.
So as you pour, one thing that we've learned with our tasting menus, or one thing that we really feel with our tasting menus, and including in the dishes we picked today, is trying to decide which types of dishes go best with sake. We found, in our personal experience, that when we have dishes that finish so clean, like sea urchin, for instance, is probably our favorite pairing in the entire world. I prefer sea urchin and sake to foie and sauterne, champagne and sweetbreads. I'll take sea urchin and sake any day. It's a perfect. Have you seen me here?
Oh, absolutely.
You've seen both of us here.
We are notorious uni eaters.
Yes.
After a real rough night at work, nothing takes the edge off like a little bit of uni, and we're lucky to be in such a wonderful place like California, where Mendocino is putting out some of the best uni I've ever had in my life, weather permitting. This is kind of a rough week for the Mendocino fishermen, but I have to say the product that comes out of Mendocino is just fantastic, and we use it every opportunity that we can.
So we found that the dishes that we like to do are dishes that finish already inherently clean, that already have a natural brininess to them. And the brininess isn't necessarily fundamentally necessary. But we've also found that if your palate's left clean and the dish is already low acid, say with sea urchin or with, in some cases, oyster, with like an oyster, oyster mousseline, or just there are certain dishes that you don't necessarily need to cleanse your palate right away. If the dish finishes already clean, why add high acid to something that's already so delicate and perfect? Just like I'm a musician. I know you're a musician too, right? Mm-hmm. In music, we talk about Bach, for instance. Bach, a lot of his lines, one part of the orchestra will be going up, and one part is playing the low notes going down. But so you need that contrast. But sometimes everyone is just floating right in the middle, and when they finish so perfectly clean, there's no need to be jarring. You just need to have them marry together at one final beautiful point. So that's why we love sea urchin and sake. I think this dish is so clean that I have a hard time finding wines that finish clean enough and that are delicate enough for it. And I felt the same way with the tartare we had. And we brought uni just because we like uni.
That was more for us than you.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are based on what structure you like with sake and what kind of food you need with sake.
So sake, as we said, is very versatile, and usually the natural progression to sake is sushi. So you usually use a lot of clean ingredients that don't have those high notes, and it makes it really easy. But I think one of the reasons why we started doing this show and bringing different dishes and bringing chefs and challenging it is to prove that sake, in fact, can extend to whole different line of foods. It doesn't choose one style of food. It definitely goes across the board. You can do Mexican food, you can do Italian, and it's a fun challenge. And we'll taste this Yamaha Junmai from Akita. It's called the Cabin in the Snow. And as I said, a little higher notes on the cleaner style, brighter. And I'm really curious to see if it plays and if it'll prove. And I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that it's not going to be as exciting, but still you're in the safe zone.
You know why I'm really excited is because we opened Oyama sake to taste with us, but then, well, we had to open two. We opened a Yamaha as well.
Nice.
So
Perfect.
I'm
So
really
we're
glad that we're on the same page.
Absolutely.
And Yamaha is wild yeast, right?
Yes.
Is that so?
Yamaha is the old method of making sake. It takes a little extended period to actually start working, so it creates a richer style naturally.
And they're a little bit more mushroomy and kind of have
Yes. However, this is the exception.
This feels really clean for a Yamaha
Yeah.
to me.
Guys, don't be shy. There's some Yamaha here.
you.
Oh, we're almost finished. Almost finished over here.
This, other than the layering and all this, the story about this dish, I think is beautiful. Is this how you played it at the restaurant?
This is exactly the way we played it at the restaurant.
We're gonna finish this dish with our good friend Lovage and a tuile that we've made from toasted rye flour rather. So it's a very, very thin tuile, finished with a touch of caraway and mulled and salt, and just breaking them into these really beautiful natural shapes gives it this kind of organic look that just, for me, I really appreciate. So I will say though that the key to this dish is not the tuile, it's not the salmon. Those are all great. It is the lovage. The lovage is insane. It really just peaks everything up, so it has real nice brightness.
Have you noticed how many times he said lovage in the last 20 minutes?
I love it. What can I say?
Chosen word. If you don't mind, I'm gonna taste it.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Wow, this definitely has a character.
Celery and parsley.
It does taste like celery and parsley.
Totally.
He's also on a nasturtium kick right now too. He didn't bring any. I don't think we brought any of that today though.
I am on this.
Taking a break.
You know, I found that there are so many things that grow in the valley that are just not only beautiful but hold really nice qualities. Like the nasturtium is spicy but not too spicy. It adds peppery tones. Instead of finishing your dish with a crack of pepper, why not put something that's going to be beautiful, hold that place, and just taste delicious in the way. So that's my nasturtium spiel for now.
Wow, I'm really amazed at that piece of art that's going on here. That's definitely.
Yeah, this is one of our first course appetizers from the dinner menu. So it's. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you, but would you mind telling us your hours right now?
Right now we're open from 10 to 4 every day except Monday. We're closed on Mondays. Sorry, 4 to 10 every day except for Monday. And then we serve Sunday brunch, and we're open till midnight on Friday and Saturday.
Nice.
So our menu changes quite a bit. We just went through another change. It's probably changes about 2 things every day, and out of the wines by the glass, those changed quite a bit as well. We have to keep things fresh because we always have incredible food like this, and chef thinks really well about wine when doing his when creating his dishes. So we have to keep it all everything in rotation and make sure we always have some pairing or at least something very close to a fantastic pairing on the menu. We call them recommendations. We feel like a pairing is when we really sit down with one bottle of wine and one dish and make them balance. That's a pairing. Otherwise, we're very cautious and we call them recommendations rather than pairings.
Absolutely.
But this is one of our new ones. We've been doing this one for a couple weeks now.
It's fun
I'm really
for a
excited.
little bit. Yeah.
I think it's delicious. So
without further ado, I think we should all try it, huh?
Should we whip out the chopsticks?
Yes, sir.
I feel like chopsticks is the right utensil for this dish. I've never eaten it with chopsticks, but I think it does feel it feels right. It just feels right.
well, please.
Please.
No, go ahead.
For you.
That is what I call a party. It's got everything.
There's a good amount of stuff on the plate, all of which kind of plays together. But if you look at each individual ingredient, they're very minimalistic. And that's kind of my philosophy, and I adopted that once I came to the Valley because the food here just tastes good. And so it makes my job very easy, and the less that I do to it, I find that it makes the ingredients shine. So in this dish, I really feel like we're letting the salmon shine, and the lovage. Salmon and lovage. The lovage.
Everything so clean, so clean. It just, again, all finishes and tapers off to this really pretty minute point that's just, it's focused.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it definitely has that. Yeah, just kind of comes to a point, rather than ending all dissipated.
The pickling liquid with the sake, I think I really enjoy the salmon. I enjoy the rye. The creme fraiche makes a big difference. The radish is nice, but I think the keystone here is this pickling liquid is really this is a little bit of acid that sets it all over the point, but actually makes your mouth salivate just enough so that it finishes even more clean than before.
I could not agree more. It definitely it's providing that acidity that the sake is lacking in this case. It's a really fun dish. What do you guys think over there, Rich? 2 thumbs up, Scott. Nice. Yeah, that is outstanding.
Yeah, I think all the flavors come together nicely with that mold and really makes it pop. Very nice. Yeah.
Yep, nice. That's coming from an expert here.
Malden makes my job very easy. Also, it's a delicious food. I could snack it just by itself. Sometimes, if you look real close, you can find the perfect Malden crystals. They're in this really nice kind of pyramid shape. I'll see if I can find any right now. Just like that. If you could see it, I hope you can, because it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's very clean salt, leaves your mouth feeling very refreshed, and it's just beautiful in general. It's got that perfect kind of shape where it's coarse yet not aggressive, and the texture doesn't bother you. It's actually very complementary to most of the things in here. So.
Nice. So let's move on to the next dish. And let me refresh your glasses. We can do probably a side by side for the soup, and then see which one plays better. Because I'd like to keep Jordan's favorite for the end.
I'm excited about that.
And for the next course, do you want to tell us a little bit, Jordan? Well, chef gets all prepared.
For the next course, we're doing this is a relatively new dish. Again, our menu changes every couple of weeks. So this is our new sun-soaked velouté. And I'm really excited about this dish that he's done because, again, it has all of the elements that we really like the dishes to have. Pardon me, I'm going to pass in front of you here. Sure. That way I don't stay in your way while you plate. So this dish is really a take on everything you would expect from escargot. I found that the way, as I get to know my best friend even more, getting to know the way he cooks is exciting. And seeing flavors that you just understand fundamentally go together and seeing them slightly reinvented in a comforting but not necessarily whimsical, but just different way is exciting. So this dish is escargot, butter, parsley, garlic, and I'm missing
The sun-soaked
the sun-soaked soup.
So, just in kind of the, perfect. Just in kind of, the creation of this dish, I've always found sun-soaked to have a really nice kind of inherent earthiness. Something that I feel shares that is escargot. At a very young age, I started eating escargot, which is kind of strange to say. I don't think most kids do, but I remember eating it on my birthday and all kinds of special occasions. And it's just flavors that I love. I love that heavy garlic. I love, heavy parsley, and I love escargot. So I thought that sharing that kind of earthiness, the parsley and the sun-soaked, that it would be nice to kind of feature them in a soup together. So our sun-soaked soup, which you can see here, we've taken sunchokes. We have, perfect, landing zone. So we have cooked them down in chicken stock, a little bit of mushroom broth as well, with gently sweated leeks and potato just to add body. Just a little bit of potato to add that natural starchiness. And everything to me just kind of flows with it. We finished the soup at the very last second with a crack of white pepper and creme fraiche, which just kind of creams it out. The escargot itself we've taken from here. We have kept them in garlic oil to preserve them, and mixed it with a little bit of poached sunchokes as well. Now, these escargot, you can see, they've been cleaned of their liver and pancreas, so that it's just that really nice foot, which adds to the creamy kind of flavor that they have. I'm going to toss this mixed with just a bit of chopped parsley. Tell you what, I'm actually going to. Hold that for you. You get the mixing bowl? There we go. Thanks. So our sun-soaked nubs, our escargot, tossed with a good bit of parsley. They've just been sautéed together with a touch of garlic. Heavy on the parsley. And if you could, just pass me that lemon juice in the squeeze bottle. The other squeeze bottle? Oh. I'm sorry. Perfect. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Acid's an important thing. You need acid in all dishes. The soup itself is very rich, so the lemon juice helps to cut through it. And we're going to take everyone's favorite salt, Malden.
Being in a restaurant with 2,000 labels by the bottle, we really, really like acid. Acid is our favorite.
And now,
It's just
actually, we
necessary.
should take a second to talk about your beverage program over there. which is really impressive. Now you have
It's-
liquor and everything.
It's gotten a lot bigger. I remember when I started when it was 1,100 labels, and we took it down to 400, and the list shrank to, I think it shrank to 28 pages, and then in 1-2 week buying period, it grew to now where it's 59 pages. So it's been quite big. And 1313 Maine, the genesis of it was a wine-centric place, so we're really excited that we have this fantastic element now of fantastic food, because you need food and wine together, and it's really just become bigger than when it was. So it's really exciting. With 50 wines by the glass, before it used to be really focused on California, and it always will be, but now we're able to get a little bit broader and still focus on the producers we like, which should be showy and flashy producers, but they should still have high acid. They should still have lots of complexity. And not to say that there's not anything wrong with high alcohol wines. Sometimes we like high alcohol wines for the food we're doing. So it's just being opened and doe-eyed to whatever's delicious and tastes good. We're not going to say you don't follow this structure or you don't follow this fundamental axiom of what the beverage industry says is good. As long as it tastes good, it's fundamentally sound, and you're a good person, we'll probably buy it. It's delicious. So it's a lot of fun to be able to do things like that. But with a dish like this, we definitely, I feel like we kind of threw you a curveball. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. Let's do this.
Have a little fun with you, you know?
exactly.
It wouldn't be fun if it was easy.
Might as well.
So I thought all the flavors for this, the earthiness would be great. Again, we also tasted this with this same Yamahai Junmai, and I loved it with like that. But I have a personal big soapbox to get on with soups, because it's hard, because with a soup you're dishing it with pairing, you're adding a liquid to a liquid. So not only do the flavors have to match, but then the body has to be right.
Textures.
Yes, and that's the hard part.
Your new
We thought
nemesis.
we spent maybe 30 minutes talking about whether or not we should give this to you or not, and
Why not?
we just said it was delicious, so we're going to cook it anyway.
Yes. No, I'm really excited.
As far as we've gotten here, we have in the bowl we have a parsley puree running up the side. We've got our escargot, our sunchokes, and we've taken the sunchokes themselves, roasted them whole, and something very unique, which I haven't noticed with a lot of vegetables, is when sunchokes you can tell they're cooked because they start releasing this almost natural caramel to them. It runs all over the sides, and what we do is we'll scrape out the meat, dehydrate it, and then fry it so it becomes this nice little almost bark. It has a really natural kind of look to it, as you can see here. It almost looks like tree bark, and it just tastes from the caramel spilling on it. Well, as it cooks, it has that kind of really nice earthy tone, and just provides a great little crunch, which I think every soup should have. So I'm just going to take a bit, kind of give each one a little layering.
They do say first you eat through your eyes, and I think this is a really good example of beauty in a plate.
Thank you.
We try. For chef's dishes like this, we'll bring this out tableside just like this, and then pour the sunchoke on top of it.
Nice.
We like all of our tableside presentations quite a bit. But this is a great example of how much we love acid. With a soup that's so creamy like sunchoke, we had to make sure that what's in the center is really heavy on the acid and really heavily dressed. Of course, to balance out the soup, but the soup has is there a little bit of acid in this as well? Or?
Oh, the soup has the natural lactic acid from the creme fraiche. It's part of the reason that we have it. And yeah, it's just, would you like to do the honors on the pour? I think you are the most well-versed. Would it help if I turned them your way?
I need a serviette would be ideal.
Wow.
So
That's not
this
the best.
This velouté, we call it. It's the word velouté comes from the word velvet, and I think this really stands up to it. It's got that natural creaminess of the sunchoke, the creme fraiche to back it up, and just a texture that's to me second to none.
Excellent. So that's going to be a tough one. I think both are going to be a pairing. However, I think the Gunma is going to have a little more of that playfulness with the richness of the chestnut. And the Yamahai, the Yuki Nobosha, will have a little bit of that acidity and clean finish with the dish. But I'm really curious. I've never had this dish. So why don't we grab some spoons? Because the chopsticks just won't do for this one. And give it a try. Wow. That's umami, if I ever seen it.
You like that?
Mm-hmm.
I think even through the preservation process of the escargot with the garlic and whatnot, still tastes that earthiness, still backs up the sunchoke, and one of my favorite new dishes of the menu.
I think I got a really good size bite of the roasted chestnut and
The sunchoke chips.
crispy, the chip, and that sense of umami, almost like mushroom-like, played really well with the gunma, which stood up. It was like ready for war. It was like standing up and pushing, rather than the yuki nobosha, which is pretty much ran and hide away somewhere else.
I'm sorry, can you pass me the yuki nobosha? That way I can, or I'm confused. Thank you.
What do you think, Chef? You guys should
Yeah,
come
I
and try it
agree.
as well.
I
Scott?
agree. We've got plenty of
Rich?
spoons. Come give it a taste. But I agree. It stands up to it and really backs it up as opposed to kind of shying away. And that's what I would look for. I prefer. Absolutely.
Excellent.
I enjoy the brightness and the freshness of the yuki nobosha. I like the yuki nobosha is the yamahai, right?
Yes.
Yes. So it's again going back to how the way we think about if we want something earthy, we have the escargot, but then the sunchoke provides that delicate earthiness, and then the yuki nobosha just provides this other high-toned, ethereal earthiness that floats right on top of it. So it really, to go back to music, we always talk about is extending the chord. We always talk about, well, if this dish, does it taste really yellow? This dish for us tastes really really green and tastes really brown. So we need to find ways to extend, and I think brown is one of my favorite ones because brown extends into the realm of yellow. So you can really extend that chord of flavors. So when we think, well, what's bright yellow flavor? We have deep dark mushrooms and then bright mushrooms, and then almost if you go from brown to yellow again now into white, sake. So the color spectrum really extends with this.
Close.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's delicious.
Nice. So there you have two different styles of sake, which both played well, I think, but they all have different perspectives to it. And real quick, before we run out of time, we'll run into the secret ingredients.
So when I drink sake, if I've got a glass of sake in my hand, I'm going to be eating some uni. That's just the way it is. It's absolutely one of my favorite foods, probably on earth. And there's really nothing quite like it. I've found that you're either a fan of uni or you're not. You either love it or you hate it. I and my good friend here are definitely in the love it category. Like I said, Mendocino puts out some of the best uni that I've ever had in my life. Bad weather provide us to get some imported from Japan, which is equally as good. But in my opinion, that Mendocino is just incredible. I was actually fortunate enough to go down a couple weeks ago and eat some sea urchins straight from the shell, freshly cracked open by a fisherman on a pier, and it was a life-changing experience. I recommend it to anyone who has the chance.
And that was with David Kinch, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's an exciting experience to have. Sea urchin is my favorite thing. When I used to live in Hawaii and used to go diving, we'd go up to Kaneohe Bay, or not Kaneohe, Kaena Point, and dive for this and crack it out there. There's nothing better than sea urchin, but with sea urchin and sake together, this is a perfect example of something that finishes so clean. It has a natural creaminess, but you don't want to wash it out. You don't want to rebalance the flavor. The flavor is so perfectly balanced. You know, wine perfectly balanced. And I came here one day after a long day to order some sea urchin and sake, and I sat down and ordered a bunch of sea urchin, and Eduardo, being the great man he is, came out with this bottle of sake, and I have come for lunch and had a bottle of sake for myself at noon before. He probably should have told me it's 21% alcohol, or is it 21 or it's 18? No.
Somewhere between 18 and 21. Just play with it.
Yeah, someone should have told me that before I had a bottle and went back to work. But this is my favorite thing on the planet, and this is what we come to Morimoto for some nights, is just born sake and sea urchin, and we effectively call it Unifest.
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 We'll come in and sit down. We'll take 20 pieces of uni and some born, and we just sit down. We don't even talk to each other. We just eat it, leave, and then go home and go to sleep.
That's what dreams are made of.
Thank you so much for opening this.
A pleasure. A little more about the sake that they're really fond of. A lot of us are. The born Muroka Junmai Daiginjo Namagenshu. Muroka refers to no charcoal filtration. Junmai Daiginjo is the highest polishing in the sake, which makes it very aromatic. Almost Viognier-like in the bouquet, where you have a little purple, white flowers, very pretty, a little bit of confectionery sugar, which is attributed mostly to the yeast. And then you have a Nama Genshu. Nama is unpasteurized, Genshu is undiluted. So you have a full strength in the palate, you have a richness, and the very pretty florals from the Daiginjo, which magically do the trick with the uni.
One thing that we talked about earlier, which I think is always important to touch on with sake pairings, usually I feel like we work with Junmai Ginjos because they have a little bit more acidity, they have a little bit more weight, a little bit more body. But with this being a Junmai Daiginjo, which sometimes they get kind of blown over, even by sushi, they're a little light for sushi sometimes. I don't know if you would agree or disagree. Absolutely. But with this being undiluted, and then Genshu is unpasteurized. There we go. Thank you. With them, but being both undiluted, so that gives it a bigger body because of the alcohol, and then more intense flavors being unpasteurized. This is the Daiginjo to work with. I would drink this every single day of my life.
Yeah, and then the producer, he's larger than life. He looks like a Japanese Elvis. Big guy with chops, very loud, very playful. We saw him last week. He comes every year for festivals, and the guy. He's known for doing a couple things. One of them is freezing his sake for about 3 months before releasing, which he attributes a lot of the flavors to that, even though there's no chemical proof that actually freezing sake would do anything to it, but it's like magic for him. This is from Fukui, Southern Prefecture, and just pretty exciting. One fun fact about the sake is that I like to tell my guests and friends, when a dignitary or president gets to Japan, most likely they're greeted with this bottle or another one of the Born products, which is pretty funny. One of the last pictures of President Obama when he visited Japan, he had one of these bottles in his hand. So pretty cool stuff, and why not? Everybody that walks here, it's as important.
That's so delicious. I don't even have anything to say. It's just delicious. My mouth is watering. This is my happy place. This is the best thing you can buy. Again, foie and sauterne, I get it. It's iconic. I quite frankly enjoy champagne and sweetbreads. I love champagne. But I will take sea urchin and sake any day over the week because the pairing is so perfect. It finishes so clean. I mean, sake is incredibly versatile, but I think this in itself is just perfect.
We had mentioned previously in the beef tartare dish that that pairing was a 1 + 1 = 3, and that's generally what we go for. This is like a 1 + 1 = 28. It's really out there. It's extraordinary. Yeah, it is this right here. Anything else would just convolute it.
Yeah, we could live on that for years.
Put me in a cave and I'll with some uni and born and I'm good.
Nice. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Everybody that came and joined us in the crowd. Then everybody here. Such an honor for us to have Jordan and Chef Ross, and we'll welcome them to the neighborhood. And 1313, which is now an icon in the Napa Valley. And it's such a pleasure to have you guys. And we had a lot of fun, a lot of really good food, fun things to talk about. And I'd like to say thank you, and I'll pass it on one more time.
No, thank you so much for having us. Eduardo's been a dear friend since I've moved here, and it's incredible to be able to work with him and call him a colleague. So, it's our one day to sleep, and we just we're coming to hang out with Eduardo all day. Absolutely. We couldn't be happier too.
This is better than sleep. So, I mean, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be in the neighborhood and happy to be in the valley. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thank you guys, and cheers. And until next show, we'll see you guys very soon. Drink a lot of sake.